Hello, and welcome to We Live for Saturday, your favorite college football podcast. I'm your co-host, Mike. With me, as always, is your other co-host, John. But, John, we've got a guest today as well.
Yes, we do. Yeah, we have a friend of ours, friend of the pod. His name is Chris, and you want to say a few words before we get started?
Yeah, thanks for having me on, guys. I am a more recent Big Ten fan. Grew up in the Midwest in St. Louis, Missouri, so big Tigers fan. But have since relocated to the Twin Cities and become a Gophers fan. And my wife went to Illinois, so I have had the somewhat pleasure of also watching Illinois sports lately. And being a more light Illinois fan, as a Mizzou fan, we are rivals to an extent in basketball. So but been listening to the pod for a while now and really enjoying you guys. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, good to have you, man. It's great.
Yeah, thanks for coming on. Is there anything you want to plug?
No, not at the moment. No.
Okay.
All right.
Well, we'll put a pin in that if you think of anything, even projects you haven't started yet.
Sounds good.
All right. We should get into it. So we had a burst of winter, and now it's spring again.
We'll see. I like to think this is done. This is real spring now, right?
Well, as the great Prince once said, sometimes it snows in April.
Absolutely.
And it snowed in April, like a considerable amount. I mean, it all melted the next day because that's how it works when it snows this late in the year.
Yep.
Early in the year, I guess. Yeah. So, but now we're getting more back to a normal springtime, which I hate, but we have been through that. We don't have to get through the reasons I hate spring again. But it's good to be talking college football. Thanks, Chris, for coming on today. And John, anything you want to say before we jump into the episode?
Yes, as always, if you want to find We Live for Saturday, you can find us on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Podcast Addict. You can find us on Twitter at We Live for B1GSat. You can find Mike here at Alibaba26. You can find me, John, at Norwegian Gopher. And you can email us, We Live for Saturday, B1G@gmail.com. Chris, is there anywhere anyone can find you?
Yeah, just Instagram, actually. Okay. I'm off of everything else. I think it's Penguin Blues.
All right.
Penguin
somewhere
Blues.
around there.
Okay, sure.
Yeah. Yes, it was a hockey-based Instagram.
I mean, either they're going to get you or they're going to get cute penguins. And either way, it's a win.
Yes, very much so.
Yeah, for sure. My parents went to Antarctica just pretty much because they wanted to see the penguins. That was the first thing my dad said. He's like, the penguins, they're sort of cute. And I was like, I never heard my dad say cute before. I didn't even know that was in his vocabulary. So that was pretty funny for me. But awesome. So this is another off-season episode. So what we're going to do is we are going to eventually get into our ideal Big Ten SEC challenge, where we'll each take all 14 SEC teams and match them up against Big Ten teams and say what we think would happen if that were to happen this year in 2025. So we will get into that. But first, we got a couple other things we want to talk about. And we got to talk about, John, the Deion. We had previously talked about on the podcast that Deion Sanders had put forth the idea of playing a spring game that's a scrimmage against another college football team. And he had initially reached out to North Carolina, but Bill Belichick was like, no, absolutely not. But then through the media, Fran Brown, the Syracuse head coach, saw it and was like, we'll play, we'll come to Boulder, let's do it, kind of thing. So we were all pumped thinking, we're going to get, still would be a scrimmage, still wouldn't be a lot of ones-on-ones, but you'd get some actual competitive football, which was going to be fun. But the NCAA came along and they said no.
As they do.
Yeah, as they tend to do. Here's their rationale, and you can tell me if it passes the smell test. I think some of it does, and some of it doesn't. So the first thing they said was that there's not enough time. Like, it's too soon, that, a lot of teams have already figured out, their spring ball or finished spring ball or come close to it. And so it's too late in the year to suddenly shift gears and do this. And I think that's kind of in conjunction with number two among their rationale, which is that they were worried that it would confer some kind of recruiting advantage. And they think if it's going to incur a recruiting advantage, then it's not fair that only Colorado and Syracuse get to do it. The other teams don't have a chance to do it as well. That's number two. And then their third argument, this is the great one, is that they're really concerned the players are going to miss too much class.
I'm sure they are.
Class. When was the last time the Florida basketball team went to class? Or any of these teams in the Final Four? When's the last time they went to class? I'm going to say high school.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to say, like, yes, they have their online stuff or whatever, but physically going to class, come on, man.
Mm-hmm.
They don't even do that anymore, most of them. They don't, at a lot of schools.
Yeah.
So that one's laughable. I do think the whole it's a recruiting advantage and it's not fair to other teams. Like, I kind of buy that if you're going to say that. But then if that's the rationale, then when Colorado comes back and says next year we want to do it, then the NCAA has to say yes. They can't say no again. You know what I mean? Like, if they're say, oh, it's because it wasn't enough time. Okay, well, then they give them enough time. Then they better say yes and let this happen.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's great for any of the programs. I think if you want to do it, I don't think it should be something that, like, if you don't want to and you don't feel comfortable, okay, fine. Like, for whatever your rationale might be. But, like, I think schools should have the right to do that. I think it would bring in so much more. I mean, it'll bring in more finances. Financially, it'll benefit everybody. I think it would benefit the fan bases. There's just a lot more to be excited about. And, I think you talked about and mentioned in the last pod when we talked about it, like, just do like a 7-on-7 or like a flag football or a touch foot, whatever. Like,
that's what I would say. Do a flag football thing. Yeah. Just skill players. Cause, like, you're most likely to get hurt on the line of scrimmage where you're butting heads every play. Yep. And, like, someone's going to get stepped on and all that kind of stuff. Cause you're in close. It's a scrum. It's easy to get stepped on, easy for someone to turn an ankle, all that kind of stuff. That happens a lot. So if you want to avoid that, you just don't do that stuff. Well, then just play a flag football game. Like, I think that's what Ole Miss did last year. I think they just played a flag football game. And, like, I would say, and why not match up guys against each other from different teams and play a flag football game? Like, what's the harm in that? You're not going to run your most comprehensive stuff. You're going to run a bunch of base plays.
Yeah. And I think if you keep it centered on the fan experience, and, like, this is just a fun time for both fans or fans from both teams or whatever to like get involved in this, I think there's a way to do it that doesn't get too, I don't know, you're not pissing anybody off, I guess, to any degree. So that's I think it would be a great experience, and if it works, great. But
and most coaches are going to be too paranoid to do it anyway.
Yeah.
Cough, cough, PJ Fleck, Matt Rule.
Oh, never.
Cough, cough.
Never in a million years.
You know what I mean? Like, those guys aren't ever, like, you'd have to drag Kirk Ferentz kicking and screaming to do that. He'd be an over my dead body. See, Kirk's just sitting there chewing on his gum, just like he does. I just, he chews. He chews tobacco when he's not at football games. He does. Yeah. Nobody chews that much gum just for fun. You know what I mean? That's an oral fixation thing.
Yeah.
Right.
What do you think, Chris?
So I don't love it. I like the 7-on-7 idea, but I don't love it. But I also think the NCAA's reasons for not loving it are jokes. The second reason makes sense, the recruiting advantage. I don't love it because I think polls start too early, and I think that they would use that for their upcoming polls. I think the AP, other coaches, but what happened in the spring? Obviously, this team is so great, whatever. Even if it's flag, I could see people going on ESPN and being like, oh my God, did you see Alabama? Nobody cares. It's a spring game. Like, stop. Yeah. We shouldn't even have polls until after week 4.
Yes.
You're preaching to the choir here, Chris.
Yeah.
I'm just worried that this starts their thought process even earlier, and they would use it as a basis to where they rank teams.
Yeah, but these idiot pundits are doing that anyway. No, sorry.
That's true. That is true. I also worry about, Syracuse to Colorado is kind of ridiculous. I get that, like, he was stepping up to the plate, but, like, more regional. Keep it more regional. Syracuse doesn't need to go to Colorado for a flag football game. Like, if Syracuse wants to play, I don't even know who's close to Syracuse. John, you lived up near there. Who's Syracuse going to play there? But Syracuse got somebody close, right?
Well, if you're going like FBS or like, you could do Boston College, but if you're doing like Buffalo, if you want to go down to like, the MAC or whatever, Buffalo could join in, just something fun like that, which would benefit both programs, especially Buffalo. I'm sure they could make some.
I love that you brought up Buffalo, because that was my other thing was I see this benefiting the big guys.
Mm-hmm.
And I see the Buffaloes, I see Northern Illinois, I see Kent State getting left behind. I love the regional. If they did a 7-on-7 regionally, and some of these smaller schools intermixed with the bigger schools just to play these 7-on-7s, because again, if we're not letting it go to the polls, if we're not making it mean anything, then why not? Even in Missouri could scrimmage Southeast Missouri State. They could scrimmage Northwest Missouri State if D2 is a D2 powerhouse.
Sure.
Just something more fun like that.
Mm-hmm.
Get the guys some exposure. And honestly, in a positive on recruiting, maybe some of these small school guys get seen by a larger school in these 7-on-7 matchups. Maybe somebody that fell through the cracks gets picked up by a larger school. Due to how they perform during that. But I just think at the moment, I don't love the idea because it seemed too focused on the big schools, and it seemed like it would be something that they could use for just national media attention on the bigger schools instead of the entirety of college football.
Sure. I like that as well. I think Mike and I talked a little bit about that. I don't think on the pod, but we spoke about having that be kind of a thing. I know, we might be opposed to it, but like there is NDSU, there's South Dakota State, there's even, schools here in the Twin Cities like St. Thomas or, St. John's, which sure, like, they're D2, whatever, but they're good. They're good football schools.
Tommy's are D1 now.
Yeah. Oh, Tommy's are D1. That's right. Sorry, my mistake.
Yeah.
So and I think there's options there, and I agree. I think that would be beneficial to some of these smaller schools and getting them involved, and it would just be fun. Again, you're bringing a lot of people. Like think of all the fans. I think like you were saying, what Northwest Missouri State or like having those fans being able to go to Mizzou, and go to the stadium there, and how that'd be exciting. It's fun,
Oh yeah.
So. Yeah, I can see that. I like that argument. But yeah, I think obviously, the experiment this year sounds fun, but I agree that, maybe by next year, if there's like some more thought put into it, maybe, they could do something like that. Because I agree. I think Syracuse or Colorado going, one way or the other is a little nuts. That's not necessary. So for a spring game. And also the polling, but I think Mike is right. The pundits do that anyways, and they're idiots, and they're proven to be idiots every single year. So
they're taking spring practice reports and like using that to move around their way too early top 25s that all have USC in them and Auburn.
Yeah.
And somehow Illinois in the bottom of the top 25, if in it at all.
Man, Illinois with 18 starters back should absolutely be a top 10 to 15 team.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. Shouldn't be a question. They won 10 games.
Yep.
In the Big Ten.
But watch, they'll be like 23.
Mm-hmm. Oh, easily.
That'll make me actually upset.
Yeah.
Because that's just silly.
I agree.
But yeah, talking about all those smaller MAC schools and things. So because we're playing them, this is just a little bit off topics, but I'll promise I'll bring it right back to the point. But let us know, everyone out there listening, if you would be interested in us in the preseason, like in August, bringing on, I know a guy who's a Group of 5 expert to break down all the Big Ten matchups.
That'd be awesome.
So I talked with him. So if people out there, if you're interested in that, like let us know in the comments or send us a message or whatever. And that's something we could potentially do before this year. And that could be really, he's a guy, his podcast is the Group of 5 Hive. And he does a preview for all 65 or whatever. Group of 5. He does like a whole episode on each one.
I'm going to follow that right now on Spotify just to make sure.
Yeah, that sounds pretty great.
Yeah, no. It's pretty cool. So yeah, just want to throw that out there. But then we can jump into this episode. So we talked Deion and all that kind of stuff. And then John, I think you had some questions for our guest.
Yes, yeah. So Chris, you being from the big bad SEC, but here's the thing: we
the Big 8 and Big 12. I am from the Big 8 and Big 12.
Okay, you are, and that's why we like you. That's why we asked you on. Yeah. You're not one of those guys who's out there chanting SEC at games or anything like that. So, which you've led me to believe that most Mizzou fans are not like that.
I can't speak for younger generations, but yeah. I would think that my age and older are mostly, you grew up with Big 8 and Big 12.
Sure.
And just, I mean, my thoughts.
Well, then let's just get to some of these questions here. So, like, just off the bat, like, what's it like being a Mizzou fan in the SEC for you?
So, I hated it immediately. As we've talked about before off the pod, I think Mizzou fits far better as a Big Ten school. Mm-hmm. The success of the football team has been fairly good in the SEC. The period since we've been in the SEC, 2012 to 2025, a roughly equal span of 1997 to 2011, which is also when we kind of got relevant in football again after being
Gary Pinkel, baby,
in early 90s. Yes, Larry Smith and then Gary Pinkel. They went to 10 bowl games from 97 to 2011, and then the SEC from 2012 to now, they've been to 9. So pretty equal. Yep. But in the SEC, they had 2 top 10 finishes, and in the Big 12, they only had 1. Mm-hmm. So the bias is helping a little bit. I mean, they did have an extra top 10 finish during that time in the SEC, which as much as I hate the bias.
Are you saying that SEC bias is a real thing?
Oh, it's extremely real. It's extremely real.
See?
There you go. But it's also very real to a point. Mizzou still has to do things to get ranked higher than just be in the SEC. Mizzou has to do more than LSU, for example, to get a higher ranking. If Mizzou and LSU have the same season, LSU is legacy SEC, LSU will be ranked higher.
Yeah.
Right? Mizzou has to have an extraordinary year over LSU to get ranked above LSU of the world.
Okay, but LSU is a helmet school. I got to ask you, I got to break it down a little further. What about Mizzou versus, say, a non-helmet school like an Ole Miss or something? Like, do you think it's harder for Mizzou than for Ole Miss, or do you think it's about the same?
I feel like Ole Miss makes everything hard enough on themselves. I don't really have many thoughts on, like, Ole Miss, Mississippi State. Like, honestly, the one that I think about the most right now is South Carolina. And South Carolina did have to scrape a lot last year.
Sure.
And they had a very good team. They beat Mizzou in a game Mizzou should have won. But that freshman quarterback with South Carolina, that amazing play at the end of the game, won them the game.
Lenore Sellers. Yeah, he's great.
Yeah. He's off and on great, right? The Illinois Bowl game, he didn't have all of his studs with him, the guys that opted out of the game for the Gamecocks, and he just could not pull it off against the Illini. He still is an amazing talent. You saw it every once in a while, but he didn't carry them the way he carried them against Mizzou. But as a freshman, sometimes freshmen have the big game, and sometimes they have a freshman game.
Yep.
But as much as I think that South Carolina really had to scrape by to get sort of a little bit of respect last year, I also thought it was funny by the end of the year that South Carolina fans thought that they belonged in the playoffs. I mean, there's both sides to just that school of like, oh, well, but we're in the SEC and this was so difficult, so we belong in the playoff. Like, calm it down. You deserve a number 15 ranking. You don't deserve a playoff spot. Like, that was just an absolute joke. But in terms of moving from Big 12 to SEC, what we lost was every meaningful rivalry.
Yeah.
Everything that's fun was I don't care about the SEC.
Mm-hmm.
I don't like Georgia. I don't like Alabama. I don't like Auburn. I don't dislike them on a football field against Mizzou. I just don't like them.
Sure.
I like to hate Nebraska. I like to hate Kansas. I like to hate Colorado. The schools that I grew up hating.
Yeah.
And now September 6th this year, Kansas comes to Columbia, Missouri, and hopefully it's going to be a bloodbath. The season has not started. Mizzou will have a new quarterback, but as you guys know, it's Bo from Penn State, and he looked pretty good in his time with Penn State, and I really hope he looks that way for Missouri. And if he does, they're going to dog walk Kansas, and that will be that's my highlight of the season. Second game of the season.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then the rest of the season, I mean, I think they host Alabama at one point, which, like, if they're winning up to that point, it'll be awesome because it'll be a nationally televised game and everybody will care. I don't know if we get over the Alabama hump yet. It's kind of the school that Mizzou has been for a long time. When they were in the Big 12 and they were great under Pinkel, they'd get to a Big 12 title game and they match up against an Oklahoma team that they should have been better than or at least equal to. And by halftime, it was over.
Yeah.
So Kansas is the only game this year that I'm really excited for, outside of just in general being excited to watch Missouri football, right? Like, It got rid of everything. So I looked this up today, and let me see. Oh, moving to Minnesota, I did not know that you guys didn't understand the Midwest. Missouri is in the Midwest. And a portion of me thinks the reason why you guys are wrong is because Mizzou made the mistake of joining a Southern Conference. So now we're going to go, oh, no, you're in the SEC yourself.
It is confusing.
In no way. St. Louis is literally the middle. Like, you can't say you're not the Midwest when you're in the middle and the gateway to the West. Like, it's in the name. Like, it's right there. But Mizzou screwed that up by joining a Southern Conference. As they joined the Big Ten, they're easily a Midwestern school, easily a Midwestern town.
So then let me ask you, like, so obviously you would have rather joined the Big 12 or the Big 10.
Yes.
So why would you like to? This seems like you could segue into that pretty easy. Like, why would you rather be in the Big 10?
So here we go. Missouri to Champaign, Illinois, 4.5 hours. From Columbia. Madison, 6.5. 3 hours, 45 minutes to Iowa. 8 hours to Minneapolis. 5 hours to Nebraska. In the SEC, the closest is Arkansas at 5 hours. Nashville for Vanderbilt, which who cares, at 6.5 hours. And everyone else. Their average distance to other SEC teams is over 550 miles.
It's tough on fans.
How do you go to away games? As you travel as well, they do go to these away games.
Sure.
They're destination places in the SEC if you care about those college towns. I'm sure they're great. I don't care.
Yeah.
But they're not close. There's no regional rivals. We got rid of Kansas, which the most fun games in this basketball season, Missouri basketball was very good this year. I'm a big basketball fan as well. Grew up a huge Missouri basketball fan. They were pretty good this year after having a dismal season the previous year. But even still, the most fun games of the year were against Kansas, which we won, which was awesome, and Illinois. Non-conference games against regional teams. The only reason why I watch them against SEC schools is them. I don't watch them for rivalries at all.
Yeah.
And as you guys know up here, it's the last football game of the season.
Rivalry week. Yeah. It's Wisconsin.
You know what we get? We get Arkansas.
Ooh.
Ugh, gross.
Arkansas. We're 8-2 against them in our last 10. We own them like they're a little brother.
Yeah.
And no one, well, I won't speak for everybody. Some Mizzou fans may care. I find no reason to care about Arkansas.
No,
They're
it's
not
like
nationally relevant. Like, who cares?
It's like Penn State ending the season against Michigan State most of the time.
Ugh.
Nobody cares.
No.
Nobody cares at all.
No.
Yeah.
Well, so let's say you're in the Mizzou's in the Big Ten. So I've got like a couple questions here. Like how do you think how would Mizzou measure up in the Big Ten now? And like what program do you think like you would compare them to in the existing Big Ten?
Yeah, so I think Missouri in the Big Ten right now with Drink coaching and the way that also SEC, I will give the fact that they're in the SEC that apparently a cat broke in here. They have been recruiting well in the SEC. It used to be a thing that Mizzou couldn't keep home a lot of the talent of Missouri. I mean, Brady Cook was a St. Louis guy. Doral Beckham Green went to Mizzou. Absolutely blanking right now. Top 15 wide receiver this year.
Luther Burden?
Yeah, Luther Burden went to Mizzou. They've recruited well in the SEC, which has helped them regain relevance right now with Coach Drink. This group, I think, would match up well in the Big Ten. I think we saw that against Iowa, who thought that they were a possible playoff team before last year.
Mm-hmm.
And the game was not pretty. I was actually kind of surprised that Mizzou won an ugly game because they're not an ugly team.
Iowa makes everything ugly, man.
That's true.
Everything they touch turns ugly.
Mizzou proved that they can win an ugly game.
Mm-hmm.
And a high-powered offense and a solid defense is what Missouri brings to the table. I think Missouri is possibly the heights of maybe a Wisconsin of the 90s or what Iowa thinks they are, which is the next team after Oregon, Michigan, Ohio State, and Penn State. I think Mizzou slots in right there, probably along with current Minnesota and Illinois of being that like second rung of teams.
Sure.
Before you hit that third rung of, Iowa.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. Well, I like that. Well, so just to kind of move away from Mizzou here, and now that you live in the Twin Cities and obviously your wife went to school at Illinois, what are your thoughts on Minnesota and Illinois being your adopted Big Ten teams?
Minnesota, way more. We started visiting Minnesota in the mid-teens, and then decided to move up here. And I started watching them early-ish PJ years, and really that 2018-19 area.
Mm-hmm.
And
good time to get in.
To Bateman, it was a great time to get. I mean, honestly, we moved up last year and became Timberwolves season ticket holders. So I'm just all the Minnesota sports. I'm only coming in. You guys everybody up here is like, we never win anything. I don't know. I've seen some good seasons myself. I'm just bandwagoning Minnesota stuff while it's pretty good. But that Tanner Morgan to Bateman connection was a lot of fun to watch. PJ was infectious. Really loved watching those teams and the energy. I was a youth hockey coach back in St. Louis, and PJ as a coach seemed like a pretty cool guy. He seemed like he was a player's coach. Sort of carried himself with class. He's roughly my age, which is a little disheartening, but also cool. But I really enjoyed those teams. Then we came up here, moved up here, and started going to games. And I enjoy going to the bank a ton. We were all there last year for the USC game.
Amazing.
That ended with the students storming the field and stuff. I think the student section is wonderful at Minnesota.
Yeah.
The stadium is gorgeous. I do think that Minnesota has a pretty good atmosphere now. Yep. I'd like to see it take another step up. I'd like to see them get even louder a little bit. I think the student section is there. I think the sort of the alumni or the elder sections of the stadium could use a little bit more noise coming out of it.
The olds.
But I do really, the olds, which we fall into. But
were you there in 2019 though? Because those games were lit.
No. That's what I'm talking about. I want that to be the norm.
No, for sure.
I want that to just be a game.
Yeah.
Wisconsin's horrendous right now. Stadiums still seem pretty filled and pretty loud all year last year, and they're terrible. Yeah. I want that. I want even against Louisiana Raging Cajuns. I want a loud stadium.
Yeah.
But I love the atmosphere, love the spot. Being able to see downtown Minneapolis from in that stadium is incredible.
Yeah,
campus is wonderful. It's crazy. Coming from St. Louis, we have St. Louis University, which is a basketball-only school. It just, you have no idea you're on the campus. It's just in the middle of Midtown.
No, Dinkytown's really a full-out college town that just happens to be in the middle of a major metropolis.
Yeah. It's incredible. I absolutely love it. The football's been a lot of fun since I started watching them. Plus, most sporting teams that I follow are decent but never get over the hump. So any Minnesota heartbreak just kind of follows through most sports teams that I follow anyway. It's fairly Mizzou-esque as well. Sure. So it's been easy becoming a fan. I mean, hockey guy as well. It's cool having the Gophers. Jimmy Snuggerud just had his first game for the Blues the other night, which was terrific. That was really exciting.
Yeah.
The hockey environment is a ton of fun at games. I've been to women's soccer. Honestly, Big Ten women's soccer, not bad at all. That's pretty cool. Out in like a farm or something. The Gophers women's soccer stadium is
it's
a really weird spot.
It's on the St. Paul campus is where it is, I believe.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's like just farms surrounding.
That's the agriculture campus.
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, I want to. The next thing I want to mark off, because I've been to I want to go to Siebert Field and see the Gophers baseball team, especially with their new coach, and see how that goes.
That's interesting. I want to see. Baseball. That's cool. I want to see the Loons.
Oh, you're talking to the right guy right here, Chris. Loves them.
Yeah, I've never been, and I've heard it's. And I want to get drunk and sing Wonderwall with everybody.
Well, you guys could basically walk there from my house, so we're real close. So we should definitely do that at some point this year. But
that is a ball.
I have one more question for you, and there's only one right way to answer this. Out of all the teams in the Big Ten, what two teams do you hate the most?
Oh, it's Nebraska easily at number one. But Nebraska's Mizzou historical. Like I'm always gonna hate Nebraska. And honestly, probably Iowa.
Well, that's okay.
Like Iowa. It's very sweet what they do to the Children's Hospital. It's very hard to hate a school that waves to the Children's Hospital. But you know what? I'm here to be that villain that hates the school that waves to the Children's Hospital.
Yeah, but those same fans will pour beer on you.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say the two right answers were Wisconsin and Iowa, but Nebraska is also a solid answer.
We will also accept Nebraska and Michigan as answers. Those are the other answers we want.
I don't like Wisconsin, but Madison's such a great city, and that
Madison's cool.
Gorgeous.
It is cool. It is. No. You're right.
I would root against the bad all day long, but
here, as a Gopher fan, I'll tell you, Wisconsin is the rival you respect.
Yeah.
Iowa's the rival because you know them and you're similar, and there's like a shared culture, and like it's contempt, but it's familiarity breeds contempt.
Mm-hmm.
Iowa is like the rival you have nothing in common with, and you hate them because they're different.
Yeah.
I like that. I like that.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's really all I got for you. I don't know if you have anything for him, Mike, but that's it. But that was great.
No. That was awesome. I think about it. If thinking about college football sliding doors, if they could trade and Nebraska could go back to the Big 12 and Mizzou could go to the Big 10. Like if the Big 10 had taken Mizzou and Nebraska had just decided to stay, Nebraska could be running the Big 12 right now.
Oh, they absolutely would.
Running the Big 12.
Yeah.
And it's just so it was just the biggest money grab mistake any school's ever made was Nebraska going to the Big 10.
Mm-hmm.
Because just think. Yeah.
I mean, obviously,
think what they did to Colorado, and Colorado almost won the Big 12.
Yeah.
By 2015, it seemed that way with Mizzou going to the SEC too, because they had a couple of good seasons right off the bat. But then,
you won the division a couple times.
Yeah, but then Pinkel's last year won 5 games, and Pinkel left, and then it was not great for numerous years, and it was basketball got bad real quick. Yeah. Plus, Big Ten, just outside of last year, Big Ten, right now, it's better in football, and it's notoriously better in basketball. It wasn't necessarily this year, but the two big sports, Big Ten's typically better.
Yeah. Well, I think it'd be fun to have Mizzou in the conference. I think it would be a lot of really cool. I think it would be a natural fit. I think for a lot of reasons, and I agree. I think there would be some rivalries that could establish themselves. Obviously, Illinois, Iowa, I think would be kind of cool. Like you said already, like with Nebraska, there's a history there as well. And I would enjoy that. I think it just would be a lot of fun. So what I put him in, I've definitely created in NCAA college football 25, like put Mizzou in there instead and have
you put them in the Big Ten.
Yeah.
Who'd you kick out?
Nebraska.
Yeah.
Sorry, Husker fans. Because I wanted to see that scenario, and I put Nebraska in the Big 12, and they did. They did very well.
I'm sure. Yeah. Sure they did.
So I mean, NCAA 25. If that doesn't prove me right, then what does? So
seriously. Nice.
No, it's all good, and I think to be fair to Nebraska, I do think Matt Rule still is a very good coach, and I think they're going to do well this year. So to defend them a bit, they're going to be, I think, a solid team. Yeah,
for sure.
We just like to give them a hard time, but cool. All right, should we move on?
Yeah. So ideal Big Ten versus SEC challenge. I guess we'll just go around the horn and do each game we would pick.
Okay, and we're going to be going through we're trying to cover every single team, right?
Yes. We did every team.
Doubled up,
do it.
Like 2 teams from the Big Ten that I think would be great against one team in the SEC, because there's there's not even numbers. So But
I just left out 4 Big Ten teams.
Okay, well then should we all 3 of us just go through each one, like what our ideal scenario is?
Yeah,
cool,
for sure. All right, my first game, and I just took, I went in order and I started at the bottom of the SEC and worked my way up. I've got Mississippi State versus Wisconsin.
Okay.
All right. It's year 2 under head coach Jeff Lebby at Mississippi State. Year 1 was a total disaster. Bulldogs finished 2-10 and 0-8 in the SEC. Woof. But they brought in 22 transfers in the portal to help shore up their many positions of need. They also get back QB and Baylor transfer Blake Shapen. So he got hurt in the 4th game last year and missed the rest of the season. So the hope is that offensive-minded Jeff Lebby can parlay some transfer receivers and improve QB play to an improved squad this year. Wisconsin entering year 3 with Luke Fickell with what I would say is an air of desperation after a failed 5-7 campaign last year. The Badgers had their moments on defense, particularly in a low-scoring near upset against Oregon. However, Wisconsin's D was roundly abused at times, especially later in the year in November. The hope is that Wisconsin's better at running back and O-line this year and that they can have success as a run-first attack. So Mississippi State ranked 123rd nationally in scoring defense last year out of 134 teams, so that's rough. They were 96th in scoring offense, which is also really bad. Look, I think Mississippi State will be improved this year, right? But if you're telling me they're going to beat a desperate Wisconsin team that's finally embracing its proper identity, I don't buy it. I don't think they're ready yet. I think Wisconsin runs the ball, controls time of possession. It's a 1 TD game, but it'll feel like Wisconsin's mostly in control. With Wisconsin 20, Mississippi State 13.
Ooh, okay. I like that idea. I like that. I think that it's definitely an interesting matchup. I agree. I think Wisconsin, even though with their current struggles, as long as they are truly embracing that identity, going back to what they always should have been, I think they should be fine. I think they're going to come back with some pieces and definitely be able to pull off a win like that against Mississippi State. But yeah, I like that. I like that idea.
Right on.
Yeah.
You want to do yours?
Yeah. Well, I'll start from the top.
Okay. We'll meet in the middle.
Yeah. So I went, my feel was like on matchups I really wanted to see and just kind of feel that I think like would kind of be the most entertaining. And I did include all 18 Big Ten teams, so I had to kind of double up.
Okay.
SEC teams.
No, I just cut people.
Yeah. You're like that, man. I know. You're hard. You're
no, I cut the teams at the bottom of the Big Ten because the SEC talks about how great they are. So I'm like, all right, let's see you against the 14 best Big Ten teams.
I like that. That's fair.
That's fair.
That's fair. Yeah. Well, top for me, which this will be to no surprise to anybody, and the reasoning behind it will make a hell of a lot. There's not much I can really say about it, but it's Ohio State or Oregon versus Georgia. I mean, right there, you've got the best of the best. You got the top team in at least the last couple of years in the SEC, best recruiting, best head coach. And then you've got Ohio State and Oregon, which, really, obviously Ohio State winning the national championship and Oregon, who very likely or very well could win it this year, in my opinion, or at least have another solid shot. So it's the best, best against best. And I think it would just be great to see something like that. Obviously, you're putting Georgia up there. And, there's a lot of hate now between Ohio State and Georgia fans. I see it on Twitter a lot.
Yeah.
And which I love.
Yeah.
And so I would like to see that, see what happens there and see how that all goes. And obviously you just have bragging rights. And that would be, just for nothing else other than just like a massively entertaining game to watch of those any of those three schools there. So, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I will come in and say that I had Georgia, Ohio State as well.
Mm-hmm.
And they're the two respective kings of their conferences in recent years. Georgia with the 2 natties, and Ohio State, who would have 2 recent natties if Marvin Harrison hadn't gotten a concussion on a cheap shot against Georgia when it counted. But I digress. It's amazing coaching matchup, crazy talented teams. Ultimately, though, Ohio State's got the best offensive player in the country in Jeremiah Smith. They've got the best defensive player in the country in Caleb Downs. Everybody thinks Julian Sain's going to be the truth. And I'm just not hearing, I don't think there are good vibes about Georgia's quarterback situation.
Yeah.
I think that's going to be a problem for them going into this year. So as great as everybody is involved, I think the Buckeyes win by 2 scores. Ohio State 34, Georgia 24.
Cool. What about you, Chris? Where are you at?
I could see that you guys went so in order. I like it. I am all over the place.
Okay.
I came up with matchups, just random matchups.
Cool.
With certain reasons for each. So we're going to start with your Golden Gophers against the LSU Tigers.
Okay.
So my wife dubbed this, shout out to Jill, the Fire and Ice game.
Okay.
Cold City versus Hot City. Both along Baton Rouge, Minneapolis. You throw a football in the Mississippi, it's going to get down to Baton Rouge eventually. 2 Mississippi towns, 2 really different weathers going on. Whether it's an away game for the Gophers having to go down to LSU and battle the heat, or LSU coming up here mid-November at the bank.
Yeah. Make them do it.
What are the Tigers doing there? What are the Tigers doing in that? Or what if both of them made a playoff? They're playing a game deeper into the year than November. We're getting into December in the Twin Cities.
Mm-hmm.
Bring the Tigers up here.
My dream is to host a warm weather team for a playoff game at Minnesota. That is my absolute
LSU's dream. They're taking a paddle boat up the Mississippi. It'll take 3 weeks to get here. They're coming up Huck Finn style. I absolutely love that. That was the first one that I thought of. I actually started thinking of Minnesota elsewhere, and my wife said, no, it's LSU because on the Mississippi River. Have them battle it out.
That's a good call, Jill. Way to go.
Sure. Love that. No, that's good. All right. Round 2 or next game. I have Kentucky and Iowa. And I'll tell you why. Kentucky just went 4-8, 1-7 in the SEC last year, but that one conference win was against Georgia. So you can riddle me that. Still can't believe Kirby dropped that game. But I picked this matchup of Kentucky and Iowa because Mark Stoops and Kirk Ferentz are pretty much the same person. They both run the ball all the time. They often struggle to throw. They both play great D and special teams. They're both insanely stubborn and curmudgeonly. This is a great, low-scoring ball coach kind of matchup. And it's been quite a journey for likely starting Kentucky QB Zach Calzada, who spent his first 3 seasons in College Station at Texas A&M, where he was supposed to be the truth, but was pretty up and down. 1 year at Auburn that went sideways. And then 2 years at Incarnate Word, where he was very successful. And now somehow he has one last year of eligibility for his final year, going to be at Kentucky. So what a journey. I just think Stoops has been doomed since the day he accepted the A&M job, only to have his offer rescinded hours later from A&M in favor of Mike Elko. Yeah. Because it's one thing for a coach to flirt with another job. It's another thing to publicly announce, hey, I'm leaving. I'm going to this other school. Oh, whoops, they pulled my offer. Just kidding. I'm back and I love you. So he's had kind of diminishing returns ever since. I kind of feel for him. It's not really his fault.
Yeah.
You know, he took the A&M job in good faith and then kind of got screwed out of it. Mm-hmm. So that said, they haven't recruited as well, I feel like, since. It kind of has gone sideways since. And I just think Iowa's FCS transfer QB, Mark Gronowski, is better than Incarnate Word, also FCS transfer QB, Zach Calzada.
Yeah.
Having a dual threat QB will open up Iowa's running game in a way we haven't seen, I don't know, since Brad Banks. And no, I'm not saying Gronowski's Brad Banks, but he's not that level athlete. But he has some running ability.
Yeah.
And that could, you know, bode well if, you know, when Iowa's running that stretch play, if there's a chance the quarterback's going to, you know, turn around and keep it, you know, it could change things up. It could open things up. It could open things up in the inside zone game. I think there's a lot of stuff that could happen. So I think Iowa runs the ball better than Kentucky. That's the difference in the game. Also, I think Iowa scores 1 on defense. Iowa Hawkeyes 20, Kentucky Wildcats 9.
Okay. Love that. Love how detailed you are. It's great.
It gets less detailed as I go because I started to run out of time ready for the podcast.
Yeah.
And I also realized at a certain point that if I was that detailed on every game, we were going to be here forever. So don't worry, folks. I get less vociferous as it goes on.
I love it. All right. Well, I'm this is again, you know, this is another one where I'm picking. There's a couple different options here with this. I'm just kind of going down the line with helmet schools and going on down here a little bit. Not really totally in order, but this is Michigan. And this is just like a great matchup of helmet schools. And I think, you know, with where Alabama, it's Michigan, Alabama, or Michigan and Texas. And I think Michigan and Alabama, number one, because they're more now where I think even than where they were. Obviously, we saw Michigan beat Alabama in the bowl game last year. Alabama's not the Alabama of Nick Saban. And not to say they're bad, that's just kind of where they're at now. And maybe, you know, now that Saban's gone, that maybe that era is finally over. Thank God, everyone. That's amazing. I hope it is. You know, no offense, Kalen DeBoer, you're a great coach, but we're over it. I'm tired of the Crimson Tide. So, not that I just think I think that would it's a really good matchup. I think there's a lot to be their strengths really complement each other. I think it's just like a good smash mouth old football game. Now, you know, Texas and Michigan, for me, it's just the fan atmosphere. You've got both of these, you know, super passionate fan bases. Both the big house, you know, and then obviously down at University of Texas, there's just like amazing atmospheres. By the way, all games
might get McConaughey sideline.
Yeah.
Waving the flag.
Yeah, and it's a cool color matchup. You got you got the maize and blue, and then you've got that burnt orange and white, and I think it's just kind of cool, and that's fun, and just like historic programs. And by the way, all of at least my games, there is not a neutral site to be found anywhere. Everyone is playing, you know, home and home or whatever. So
for sure. I didn't go down because they could be at either one, but yes. All games any hypothetical game we ever create on this podcast is always on campus.
Yes.
We don't do hypothetical neutral site games. That's not our jam.
Yeah. And neutral site, the only thing I would ever consider for anything would be the Rose Bowl. So aside from that, no.
Yeah.
So, yep. So that's it. Yeah, that's it. I just think those would be that would be a fun matchup for everybody involved.
Yeah.
I'll piggyback on you. I did also have Alabama, Michigan. You want a weird Alabama, Michigan stat? Because they both have giant stadiums. They both have great histories, right?
Yep.
When's the first time Alabama played Michigan?
Ever?
Yeah, when is the first time they ever played?
Oh, when? I thought you said this.
Yeah.
Oh.
No.
Oh, I don't know.
1987.
Huh. Oh, I would have said like 50.
That deep into history. Yeah,
wow.
Easily, I would have thought some past bowl game. 1987. Michigan is up 4-3 in their head-to-heads because of the bowl game last year. When I said, two giant teams, two teams that recently are national champions, two teams that recently were the best, but now their fan bases think they're still the best, but they're not anymore. They match up perfectly in all sorts of ways here. Alabama and Michigan are just fantastic for each other. They should date.
Yeah.
But also, the bowl game last year, we're all happy. As much as we don't like Michigan, we'd rather them beat Alabama. And it happened.
Oh, I laughed.
Oh, it was amazing.
Out loud.
Yeah. Hysterical.
It was so
Do you know
funny.
how many Bama fans were online going, this is a joke that we're not in the playoffs. It's a joke that we have to play this Michigan team in a bowl game. They were just going to roll right over them. Oh, my God. That scoreline.
Then they went 9-4. Whoops.
Yep.
Then they went 9-4.
Loved it.
Yeah.
That'll happen. All right. Nice. I like that. All right. Coming back around. Let's see an old Big 8 conference, Big 12 conference rivalry. Let's see Oklahoma, Nebraska.
Yeah.
They used to be great, but helmet schools both. Nebraska's largely struggled since they joined the Big Ten. Oklahoma used to be great even more recently, but they've really struggled under current head coach Brett Venables, who plays decent defense but hasn't scored points the way we expect Oklahoma to score points, and really struggled in the SEC last year. So this is kind of a desperation year for both teams. I think these are programs with Matt Rule and Brett Venables that are expected to take the next step this year. And if they don't take the next step this year, there's going to be serious questions about whether these coaches could be there long term. Oklahoma head coach Brett Venables brought in Washington State QB John Mateer in the offseason. Mateer did big things at Wazoo. He's a true dual threat that should open up Oklahoma's running game. Matt Rule's entering year 2 with 5-star QB Dylan Raiola. The hope is that with better weapons at receiver and running back, that Raiola can take a big step this year. I think this is a close game. I think it comes down to the fourth quarter. That said, John, and I think you know what I'm going to say, Nash Hutmacher isn't walking through that door.
Nope.
For Nebraska. And he was a game wrecker for like the last 3 years. He controlled the line of scrimmage in every game. He gave Nebraska a chance. With him gone, man, I think that opens up running lanes for Mateer and running back Gavin Sawchuk. I think Oklahoma wears down a good Nebraska D, managed to score some points in the third and fourth quarter when the defense is run down a bit. So I've got Oklahoma 24, Nebraska 17.
Well, I love that. And I'll go with my Nebraska pick since you brought that up, because I also had Nebraska and Oklahoma.
Nice.
For all the reasons you pointed out. But, the history, the rivalry, I mean, we all want to see it, man. I feel like there's definitely some non-conference games like that I can understand the arguments of why certain teams should play other teams in non-con every year.
Yeah.
And Nebraska, Oklahoma just makes sense to me. And I wish it was. I wish it happened. So, but I also added in Nebraska and Tennessee for a different reason. This might be a little controversial, but we all know what Nebraska fans are like. We all know what Tennessee fans are like. If there's anyone who is more there, I want to see the most outspoken fan bases that I encounter and see on Twitter clash. I want to see who can out obnoxious and out yell and brag about everything and anything under the sun.
Mm-hmm.
And so that it's not even about the teams, it's the fans that I want to see. I want to see go at it. And so that's why I picked Nebraska. Obviously, Nebraska, Oklahoma for the football and the rivalry and tradition. I love it. It's amazing. But Nebraska, Tennessee, because I can only imagine what Twitter would look like. It would be glorious to sit back with some popcorn and just watch it all just explode.
Twitter might actually make money instead of losing it.
Yeah, right.
That's a real thing that could happen if Nebraska and Tennessee played. Yeah, it'd be great. I love that. Good one. All right, Chris, you're up.
All right, so I'm going to go selfish and about to happen again. Going Missouri, Illinois.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
It happened 6 times between 2000 and 2010, 0 on campus, all at the Dome in St. Louis. Missouri won all 6. I mean, those were during Pinkel years, and they were during, I think the Illini went to a Rose Bowl in there somewhere, but they weren't great in the 2000s. For the most part, it was Missouri just smoking Illinois every
Were those the Ron Zook years? Was that?
Yeah.
Yes.
Ron Zook, and then I forget who was after Ron Zook.
Yeah.
But in 2026, they have a 4-game series starting on campus. No more in the Dome. No more neutral site. Get the games on campus.
Yep.
Which I did not say earlier when we were talking about being a light fan of Illinois, but went to a Minnesota game at Illinois at homecoming with my wife a few years ago. Unfortunate game for the Gophers, but Memorial Stadium is awesome. It's really cool. It's a very, very old stadium. There are parts of it that are kind of gross, but it's just kind of adds to the fun of it, but I'm going to love, I already told her we're going to one of the games at Illinois. Like there's no way I'm going to miss out on an on-campus Mizzou, Illinois football game, especially now that both teams are relevant. And you guys know this with PJ. When PJ came in, I've heard you talk about before how he had to fight to get an atmosphere to start back up at the bank.
Well, he came in off a scandal, right? So he came in after a scandal that had kind of soured people against Gopher football. So he had his work cut out for him. Yeah.
Illinois football didn't really have a scandal. They just had Illinois football, which is scandalous enough before Brett. But he's trying to build something there. There was not a lot of people there. There were not a lot of people there when I saw them.
It's a basketball school.
Amount, but it doesn't have to be. I think we're finding that out with a lot of schools right now. There's a lot of schools that have been basketball schools for a long time that are becoming football schools. Indiana, Memphis, and these schools. But as you do that, you have to. It doesn't automatically happen day one. You don't automatically have a great atmosphere. But if Bielema keeps doing what he's doing, by the time there's games in Champaign versus Missouri, I think that stadium is filled. I think it's loud. I think it might be a college game day atmosphere where they got the Big Ten game of the week, something like that. There will be somebody on campus doing their morning show. It will be a big deal, and it will be a ton of fun. Despite the fact that when my wife went to the University of Illinois and they were playing Mizzou in St. Louis, one of her friends at school asked, "What is a Mizzou?" Because Illinois is more of a northern Illinois school than it is a southern Illinois school. So it's a bunch of Chicago kids who don't know what Mizzou is. They will find out again soon. But apparently certain ones don't right now. But I do think that will be an absolute ball and really be also a boom to Illinois football to have another big rival come into their stadium, really fill it up.
Yeah.
Man, the thing I remember about Gary Pinkel teams is that there'd be 4 wide receivers, and you knew it was a wide receiver screen. It was second or third and short, and you knew it was a wide receiver screen, but you didn't know who was catching the ball, who was blocking, where it was going, and it always worked. It always worked.
They were always lightning fast.
He had an unlimited amount of screens. unlimited, like Steve Sarkisian amount of screens. It wouldn't surprise me if Sark has a shrine to Gary Pinkel up somewhere. You know what I mean? Like, just like the guys who think screens are the best play in football and that you should run them all the time. Yeah, so that's what I think. When I think Gary Pinkel, I think impossible. Like, I think about 4 receivers coming off the line, and you knew one of them was about to catch a screen, and that's it. Yeah.
Yep.
All right.
Dead on.
Next up, I had Auburn versus UCLA. So, noted football coach and huckster Hugh Freeze has struggled a bit at Auburn. He's known for high-scoring offenses, but that hasn't materialized at Auburn the way it did at Liberty or at Ole Miss before due to QB play under Freeze. Peyton Thorne was not it, and I could have told you he wasn't it. Any of us could have when he was at Michigan State, but Hugh Freeze needed to see it for himself, apparently, and that didn't work out real great. So former 5-star QB Jackson Arnold comes over after things went sideways at Oklahoma last year. He's got a lot of talent, but he also got benched quickly at Oklahoma. In fact, Oklahoma let Dylan Gabriel go because they thought Jackson Arnold was so good, and then they benched Jackson Arnold. So you wonder about that. That said, well, I like Deshaun Watson at UCLA's OC hire and Tino Sunseri. I think the UCLA offense is still a year away from being very good. That said, Joey Aguilar did big things at App State at quarterback, and he brings his own dynamic ability to this game. It's possible he thrives in Sunseri's offense, and UCLA gets it done. That said, Auburn's in win now mode, while Deshaun Watson is still in just year 2 of a rebuild. So I think Auburn wins. Auburn 27, UCLA 17.
Okay, I like that. Yeah, my next one. Well, first off, I want to say I also had Illinois and Mizzou because we gotta bring the arch rivalry to football. Like, it needs to be there. So, and I'm all about just more rivalry, like official rivalry games, and that's what the Big Ten's all about. And is there a trophy for that? I mean, there should be. If not,
I don't know if it was called Arch Madness, I think.
Yeah.
Bragging Rights is the basketball game. Arch Madness was the football game. They might have had a trophy of the Arch or something like that.
Yeah. Well,
I had
somewhere at Missouri.
I had Mizzou, Illinois as well, but go on.
Yeah. Well,
we all had it.
There should be. Yeah. I mean, it just makes sense. So I'm all for that. But my next pick it's Penn State and LSU.
Hold on. Before we go, I got to give my Mizzou, Illinois, as long as we're here.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
You don't want to come back and talk to it later.
Absolutely.
So great matchup, 2 longtime rivals. Illinois got 18 starters back, including QB Luke Altmaier. Former Penn State QB Bo Pribula, as you said, brings a dual threat skill set to Mizzou that should serve them well as they adjust to life without superstar wide receiver Luther Burden. This is high scoring, man. This is Eli Drinkwitz and Brett Bielema at their best. I think it's high entertainment. I think it goes back and forth. One team and the other has the lead. I think we go into double overtime, and it comes to Illinois attempting a 2-point conversion to win or lose. I think Altmaier's got the savvy to get it. Illinois escapes. So I've got Illinois 39, Mizzou 38 in 2 overtimes.
What do you have to say about that, Chris?
That's a score right there. And, after 6 wins in a row, I wouldn't mind losing by 1 point. But it still ain't going to happen.
Think they got him. Hey, Brady Cook's back, right? Or is he gone?
No.
He's gone.
No,
that's right, because we just talked about Bo Pribula. Yeah, oh, my goodness. Brain cramp.
But that's it. So
brain cramp. All right. I'm good now.
Cook wasn't necessarily a dual threat quarterback, but he had big running plays occasionally, right? Now you put in a real dual threat quarterback.
Right.
Could be even better.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I love that matchup, though. It's amazing. It really is. That's a great matchup. Well, I picked Penn State and LSU as my next matchup here. And,
okay.
For me, again, you're talking, this is peak fan atmosphere. You got Death Valley, and then you got Happy Valley. And obviously, even the names totally opposite. And if, I don't know, obviously, Mike and I both have been to a whiteout and it is deafening. And I've heard
the loudest thing I've ever heard in my life. It was the only game I've ever been to that was as loud as that whiteout was 2019 Minnesota Penn State in the Dinky Town.
Yeah.
And I'm telling you, Chris, that 2019 game, man, that place was like it was like somebody set a bunch of gasoline on fire, but like an hour before the game started.
I love it.
Yeah, it was bananas.
Well, this to me, and I've heard similar things about Death Valley. I've heard it's just
that it's as
wild.
Good as it gets. Yeah.
So you got that atmosphere. These are atmosphere games, man. I mean, it doesn't get any better than this. Both proud programs, both helmet schools. Now, to me, what I want to see here, because now you have two head coaches who are also very good at losing games that they shouldn't, or losing a game in the last minute. You've got James Franklin and you've got Chip Kelly. So they both know how to look great in the first 2-3 quarters and then somehow fall apart in the fourth. So I want to see who's going to give. That's what I want to see here. It's a great head coach matchup, and who's going to screw up, like just totally drop the ball. I think it'd be an even match. LSU's got a high-powered offense. Their defense has been not as good lately, but Penn State, obviously dominant defenses. Their offense is, it's solid, but it hasn't been anything special for a while. I know Tyler Warren was amazing, but that was just one man in Tyler Warren. I don't see that happening this year. But so that's where for me it's obviously it's the atmosphere and the head coaching matchup is what I want to see.
Yeah, that's a really good. The fact that those are the two best home atmospheres in college football.
Yeah,
LSU in the night game and Penn State in a whiteout. Like that's as good. That is as good as it gets. So matching those two up, LSU definitely a college football bucket list for me. Like I want to get to a game in Death Valley at some point. So yeah, good call.
Yep. Cool.
All right. So the next I got here, got a little bit of help, a suggestion again from the wife, and found out, according to a website I found called drughelpline.org, lists Arkansas as the third least drunk state in the U.S., and Arkansas is going to travel to the 8th drunkest in Wisconsin. We're going to have a battle of the non-drinkers versus the drinkers.
There's no way Wisconsin's only 8th. There's no way.
So it was like
chance.
Per capita. So like
I
still don't believe it because there's no people there. But I agree with you. I think Wisconsin's higher than that. But they're also teams with very fun, unusual mascots. The hog, nobody else is a hog. A badger, awesome. Nobody else is a badger. They're both red and white. The most boring color scheme. Absolutely horrendous color schemes. It's going to be a boring game to look at. It's two teams that fan bases think they're better than they truly are at this point. So they're going to get after each other on Twitter, and we're all going to sit around and enjoy the show just like you talked about earlier. But instead of being like two pretty decent teams playing a pretty good game, it's just going to be two of the most mid teams to mid-low teams that you've ever seen just running into each other on a field while half the stadium soberly watches it and the other half jumps around. I think this is a beautiful thing right there.
I love that. That. That's a good pick.
That would be a must-win game for both coaches, I think. If it were,
I would agree.
If it were happening this year.
I do think Wisconsin edges that, though. I just don't.
Yeah.
I think Sam Pittman's
zero
done.
faith.
Yeah.
He's done.
Yeah.
Toast. All right on. Moving along. Next up, I've got Vanderbilt and Michigan State. So Jonathan Smith versus Clark Lee, but more importantly, a QB battle with Diego Pavia for Vandy and Aiden Childs for Sparty.
Okay.
Both these teams feature inconsistent defensive play and QBs who can make huge plays and even bigger mistakes. Watch for Sparty's Nick Marsh at wide receiver do big things going downfield catching the ball. That said, I like the savvy veteran Diego Pavia to lead a scoring drive late to win the game. Vanderbilt 31, Sparty 27, and Jonathan Smith starts to feel hot in year 2.
Okay.
Not saying he's gonna. I'm saying if that was a real thing. If he lost to Vandy in the I think Sparty fans would not be impressed.
Mm-hmm. No, you're absolutely right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. I like that.
I had to get Vandy in somewhere.
Yes. No, I get it. So my next pick is Wisconsin versus Auburn. Now, the reason I picked these two is obviously we know, as we've already well established, Wisconsin is struggling right now under Luke Fickell. We're not entirely sure what we're going to get this year again. It's do or die with him. Yeah. And then there's this like unusual amount of off-season hype surrounding Auburn from
everybody. Everybody's like, oh, Auburn's going to be the best turnaround 5-7 team you've ever seen.
So it's funny to me. The reason I picked Auburn is because for years and years, and this has only kind of stopped this last year or two, Wisconsin was always that team that somehow magically was in the top 15 or top 20, no matter what their previous record was or who was coming back or wasn't coming back. It was just the obligatory pick because nobody else knew who else to put at the top of the Big Ten West at the time when that was still a thing. So they just always lazily picked Wisconsin.
Even after Washington even after Iowa started winning it every year.
Yeah.
They kept picking Wisconsin.
Yeah, it still happened.
Yeah.
So, but I feel like that's Auburn this year. And I feel like people are picking Auburn and somehow they're going to end up like a top 20 team for no good reason whatsoever. Mm-hmm. And Wisconsin now is finally playing or might be playing from a place of, it's a prove it. It's a desperation year. And to be honest, this is a game I could see Wisconsin upsetting Auburn and shutting up all those national pundits. And once again, proving that the floor of the Big Ten is a lot higher than what people think and want to give them credit for. And I think Wisconsin, I think it would be a close game, but I could see that being a game that would be, in a way, a signature, would be a signature win for Fickell, and it would be huge for him and, being able to stay there and maybe cool his seat down a little bit. So that's why I picked that. I think it would be an interesting matchup, and I think it would be an upset by Wisconsin.
Yeah, no, I'm with you.
You're welcome, Scooby.
I like that. Dude, I'm just saying Auburn starts out the year at Baylor in Waco. And if Hugh Freeze loses that game, man, if he loses to Baylor in Waco to start the year, he might not make it to midseason.
Mm-hmm.
They might just
Baylor too.
That's what I'm saying. Where Baylor's at right now, like but that's a losable game, man. You go into Waco, you could lose that game easily.
Yep.
Dave Aranda is not a great recruiter, but he's a good coach. Like his defense is always going to be tricky. I don't know, man. I'm watching that game. Because I think Auburn's, I think all the stuff Hugh Freeze did at Ole Miss and Liberty is kind of catching up with him.
Yeah.
And maybe he was never that good a coach. He was just kind of a huckster. Is kind of what I wonder.
Yeah.
Who had some offensive ideas that were a little ahead of the curve, and that worked for a while, but then defenses caught up, and it turns out he's not really a leader of men. Because he was once a guy. Let's remember, this is Hugh Freeze, who at Liberty went in the DMs of undergraduate students to yell at them for complaining about football. And for other stuff that wasn't football related that was disgusting. So if you can't tell, I don't like Hugh Freeze, and I want to see him fail.
That's added to a list of things you can't do while at Liberty. It's a pretty long list.
Yeah, so Hugh Freeze, not a fan.
Yeah.
All right, next up, I've got
Arkansas. Chris
Chris is up. Sorry.
Yep.
I actually have a Vandy. I have a Vandy with you, Mike. But you couldn't have this Vandy because you dropped the bottom of the Big Ten. Vandy's easy matchup is Northwestern. Yeah. They're both in or adjacent to major cities that are pretty cool. Mm-hmm. They both have pretty nice, beautiful campuses. They both have football that no one really cares about most of the time. I do think right now Vandy is on Northwestern's sometimes cool path. right? Last year, it was kind of fun to watch a Vandy game because they could upset some teams in the SEC. They could surprise you. They could be really interesting. How many times have you said that with Northwestern? There's just an out of the blue, nowhere year where all of a sudden it's like, man, Northwestern's pretty fun this year. They're not going to finish in the top 15. They might be number 25. They might knock off a top 10 team out of nowhere. Vandy kind of just had Northwestern seasons that Northwestern's had in the past. And I just see a lot of parallels there of just being and also just a good football game between the two. Because even if Northwestern is down right now and Vandy's up, like you said about the Big Ten, the floor of the Big Ten is not as low as people think. And I still think Northwestern gives Vandy a pretty good football game right now.
Yeah. No, I like that. And since you brought that up, I also had Northwestern and Vanderbilt. But I also had UCLA and Vanderbilt as well, just to kind of, if I'm doing all of 18 teams, I think that would be another good matchup. A battle of the smart schools, so.
Yes.
And
I want to just
no fan bases, the
Yes.
zero fan base. Yeah.
That's actually that's funny. I just want to point out the Big Ten has won the last 2 national titles, just in case we all forgot.
Yep.
Yeah. All right. Okay. Next up, now I have Arkansas, Washington. I don't believe in Sam Pittman at this point. He's been in a precarious spot for a while. Teams haven't improved much. We talked about that. Whereas Washington has dynamic dual threat QB Damon Williams and star running back Jonah Coleman back. I just think Washington's going to be a lot more explosive on offense than Arkansas. So I got Washington 31, Arkansas 13.
Okay. I like that. That's a good one. That's a good matchup. I have. Can you hear me?
Come back.
Can now.
Yep.
You're back.
Okay. All right. Sorry. Yeah. I have Iowa versus Florida.
Oh, okay.
Legway's the name, right?
Yep. DJ Legway.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So I want to see. There's obviously a ton of hype around him. There's a lot of talk about Florida's offense being a lot better. And I just want to see the matchup against Iowa's defense. And I think as well, this is another game that, even though with the success of Iowa in recent years and consistently winning 9, 8, 9, 10 games, I feel like still somehow Florida would be favored just because.
Yeah. Oh yeah. They would for sure be favored.
Yeah. And so it's another game where I think it would be close, and somehow Iowa would pull off an ugly win, and Florida fans would not know how this happened. Florida probably even threw for more yards, ran for more yards,
but had 2 or 3 turnovers.
Yeah, 2 or 3 turnovers.
One of which Iowa inexplicably returns for a touchdown.
Exactly.
Because Kirk Ferentz made a Faustian pact in the late 90s.
And Florida fans would know what it's like to be us. And that's where I'm seeing that game going. I think that's why I want to see that matchup. I just want to see these, I think especially Florida fans who still fancy themselves they as should be a national title winning program, and just to get Iowa would feel good.
Yeah. Right on. Chris, you're up.
I like it, and I have the exact same matchup. Florida, Iowa. I was running out of a little bit of time. I was having a busy work day, and threw those two together for another reason of both of them think they are better than they are. Both of them, again, think that they're playoff schools, and they're not right now. I think they would give each other a good game. I do think Iowa is the better team right now. I think probably by a touchdown. But also because you have a Hawkeye and a Gator. We got water versus air right there in the mascots.
It's like
I thought about some of these matchups. Yeah, we got some merch opportunities here. A couple of my matchups are based on some fun merch opportunities, and this was definitely one of the. You can make some pretty cool shirts depending on which way you want to go. A Hawkeye coming in, claws out, grabbing a Gator out of the water, grabbing a bird out of the sky. We got merch opportunities real quickly with this matchup of two teams, both of which I'm not a big fan of, but both are big fans of themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And I do love the idea of Iowa would not be favored, but is probably the better team.
Yeah.
For sure. Well, as long as we're on Florida, I've got Florida versus USC.
Oh, okay.
2 recognizable helmets, 2 coaches facing an uncertain future at their current jobs. So what's the difference? Difference to me is Florida has DJ Legway and USD is still trotting out Jaden Mayava. Legway could be set for a Heisman level season this year. Mayava, not so much. I think this one's lopsided. I've got Florida 37, USC 20.
Yeah.
Mayava with 2 or 3 or 4 picks.
Yeah. I would, in that matchup. Yeah, I would see the same thing. And it really is Mayava. Like, and it's not for lack of talent on that USC team, and you can also see again the possibility of Lincoln Riley just not knowing when to give up on the pass.
Yeah, not knowing when to run the ball.
Yeah.
So,
all right. Well, my pick is I have Michigan State versus Texas A&M. Now, both of these are agricultural schools. Both, obviously, one from the north, one from the south. I believe Michigan State was once Michigan A&M. I think they were originally that. I may not. I know it was A&M something. So, but that, and I'm not even totally sure. And please, someone correct me if I'm wrong. But that the Aggies were once either their actual mascot or they were being considered at one point in time. But
interesting.
They chose the Spartans.
Right.
I could be wrong, but I think I read that somewhere. But when I did research on another pod. Anyway, so this is another. These are 2 programs. Michigan State still wanting to be, that borderline helmet school like they kind of were when under D'Antonio. A lot of success then. Super tough, especially defensively. I mean, they were freaking nasty and they were mean. Like they were just mean, and so that was a lot of fun to watch back then. But Texas A&M is a team that, I think so. Anyway, so Sparty thinks that they are and should be still that kind of program, which they could be under Jonathan Smith. I think they have the potential of getting there. Now, Texas A&M continues to think that they are that team and are going to be every year that's going to happen because they buy all of these recruits and have so much money and yet fail to ever reach those heights. So for me, I think it's watching a team that I actually think is under good leadership. You have Jonathan Smith, you have Joe Rossi, as DC, and with Texas A&M, I just don't see anyone still on that staff or in that program that makes me think that they're gonna make that jump. Where I see the potential with Michigan State, and I just think I personally, I think it's just something I want to see as far as just like 2 agricultural schools. But I think Michigan State definitely would come out with a win here. I think Jonathan Smith would be able to mark this as a pretty solid signature win, if you will. So
interesting. Okay.
I can agree, but that's a tough one. I thought Mizzou was going to beat A&M last year, and they got absolutely destroyed.
A&M's really good on defense.
Opponent than I thought.
They're very good on defense.
Their home crowd is really great right now. Their stadium rocks right now. It's really wonderful to see. My next one I got is I had USC, but I just sent them all the way coast to coast. The Battle of USC.
Yes.
USC versus South Carolina.
Sure.
2 coaches that aren't necessarily the most likable people if you aren't a fan of their team. My biggest experience with South Carolina was their upset of Missouri last year. Not necessarily upset; they were both ranked around the same. But their defeat of Missouri last year was just a great game, and they seem to be a pretty solid team. But then the Illinois Bowl game, where Biela made the South Carolina coach go absolutely insane on the opposing sideline, and I think that'd be a nice matchup with USC there. See which coach can maintain their cool, and I really do think South Carolina takes that game pretty handedly. I actually think. I just don't think. I don't think you're beating a decent South Carolina team throwing the ball the way USC does.
Mm-hmm.
And if USC ran the ball, I see it being a close game. But I think we all have watched enough USC at this point to know that all of us would be watching the game and we'd see a drive where USC would have consistent running plays down the field, and we'd go, "Oh man, this is all the Trojans now."
Mm-hmm.
And then they would immediately throw 4 picks on their next 4 possessions.
Mm-hmm.
I just what an insanely maddening team that has to be a fan of right now. I feel sorry for you Trojans fans at the moment. So much talent and so much just it's a school people want to go to.
Mm-hmm.
It's a helmet school.
Yep.
You just gotta get out of that.
Their fans don't even go to the games. I don't feel bad for them. Their fans they're like Miami.
That's fair.
They're an online entity. They're not an in real life thing. They're an online thing.
And you experienced it firsthand, so like.
Yeah, I went to
true.
When I lived in LA, I went to good USC conference games, and there'd be nobody there paying any attention. Caring at all. I remember when Minnesota went out there in Jerry Kill's first game, and I swear the Minnesota fans were louder. We were louder than the USC fans were. It was, it's like Miami, man. Their fans aren't even, they're just puffing their chests online. They're not even a real thing.
Well, I also had USC in South Carolina, by the way. So just since we're on that, and
nice.
And the main reason I picked that is because there's a guy I tour with who is a Gamecocks fan. And he gets so annoyed, and I guess a lot of fans that they think they're the original USC.
That's funny.
Yeah, so there's like this thing that they hate the Trojans because
right.
we were USC before you were USC, and it's like, okay, so that's that's a thing. So I want to see that. That's other than the reasons you already stated. So
that's the trophy. It's just a trophy that is USC, and whichever team wins gets that trophy. But then all the networks have to abide by that the next year.
Yes.
On your score graphics, if they lost, it can no longer say USC. It has to say Southern Cal. It has to say South Carolina until you win the trophy back.
Love
That's how
that.
Minnesota and Michigan both want to be U of M.
Yes. Yep.
Yeah, dude. Right on. All right. We'll keep this moving along because I'm afraid we are going a little long, so I'll be a little faster. I've got Texas A&M Rutgers. I love Greg Schiano. Love that defense and running game. Don't love Ethan Kaliakmanis. A&M should have a talent advantage here. I think Rutgers puts up a fight, and I think it's close and ugly and low scoring, but A&M finds a way to win this. Aggie 17, Rutgers 16. Mike Elko taking, antacid because he's so tense about almost losing to Rutgers.
Mm-hmm. Okay, love that. My next pick is Minnesota or Washington versus Ole Miss.
Okay.
Washington, I just didn't know where else to put them, to be honest. And I'm sorry, Husky fans. It's just I'm just couldn't think of a good matchup right now. Jedd Fisch is just so new. I'm not sure where. I think if we're gonna go with like what I assume stylistically, it would be 2 high-powered offenses, through the air. That would be kind of interesting to see who can score the most points. But Minnesota and Ole Miss is interesting because you're going with ground and pound, and then you've got Lane Kiffin, who just, everything is high flying spread offense. And so I think the matchup of the styles would be really cool to see. And head coaching matchup. You got PJ Fleck and Lane Kiffin on the same field. Like, come on. Who doesn't want to see that? So
charisma versus sarcasm.
Yeah. So there you go. That's where I want to see.
Yeah, I like that. All right, Chris, you're up.
Way out of the box. I'll be very quick because this was one at the end of mine. So I have a few more with more thoughts. But Washington versus Kentucky. Cats versus Dogs.
Yeah.
Nice.
Love
Huskies and the Wildcats, man. Cats versus Dogs. 2 teams in similar position last year in their respective conferences. Sort of lower tier teams. I think it'd be a pretty good game. Now Washington becomes Washington again. It's not that great of a game. Yeah. But for now, I think it's a pretty good game. Dogs win.
Okay. Awesome. Love that. All right. I've got next up South Carolina and Illinois because the bowl game was so funny. We need the rematch. Brett Bielema drove Gamecocks head coach Shane Beamer crazy, faking injuries to slow up his no-huddle offense. I want to see Bielema do it again. Well, Beamer screams in impotent rage. I think it's a rematch with similar results. I got the Illini 20, Gamecocks 17.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. I have Indiana versus Mississippi State.
Oh, wow. Okay.
This is just like kind of a similar color scheme, you know, like they're both a little like the crimson and cream a little bit. You know, I want to put Indiana fans to the test, and I want to see if they can show up and somehow overpower that cowbell. And because now that they've got something to cheer for,
right.
Now that they really have something to cheer for, it's time to truly, not that they haven't been showing up this last year. I think they definitely did, but especially by the end of the season, I think they were very present. But I want to see them show up and against something like that. I know that's difficult, but other than that, man, yeah, I just think that would be a fun fan matchup right there.
All right, I got my next one for you guys, and then I got to grab something real quick. I'll be right back. But I got Tennessee versus Oregon. Two teams that were in the playoffs last year, right? Two solid programs at the moment. But right here, I was just thinking merch. You got to volunteer going duck hunting. It's going to be a solid football game. Two pretty interesting color schemes. Two pretty their own color schemes. Not a lot of teams that are the same. And then just picture the old school Tennessee volunteer logo.
Yes.
With the musket.
Yeah.
Hunting for a duck.
Love it.
Absolutely want that to happen.
That's great.
I'll be right back.
All right.
I accidentally picked Mizzou and Illinois, not realizing I had already picked Illinois. So we're going to adjust that and just make that Mizzou against Maryland. We got two M's. We got two high-flying offenses, all that kind of stuff. So I feel like I can hear myself through Chris's thing.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah,
well, we'll just try to.
Yeah, it's fine. We'll push through quick. No worries. What was I going to say? Yeah, so we'll go with Maryland. I think this is a game that Mike Locksley would need to win, and he ends up getting run off the field.
Mm-hmm.
And Mizzou just takes it to him, and it gets ugly. But I think it would be fun for like a half.
Yeah. Well, I think you're in a way at this point, like, aren't we just trying to get Mike Locksley to an offensive coordinator like sooner than later? Like, isn't that what we all kind of want? I mean,
that's kind of where we're going.
Yeah. Like, let's just get there, man. You know, and again, Uncle Mike, love you, always will. But you know, let's do what we need to do at this point in time, and let Maryland move on. So I hear that. Well, I have Maryland as well here, but I have Maryland and Kentucky. They're both, you know, a lot of people don't realize that Maryland is much more of like a southern school and the southern part of the country than what they are. A lot of people think they're like closer to like New York and New England kind of vibes, and it's just
no.
So I feel like, you know, culturally, Maryland and Kentucky have a lot in common. And I think that these are two teams that are not doing particularly well. I think kind of like Chris said about what was it, Wisconsin, and who was your other? Who did you have? Arkansas. It's kind of a mid-off, you know. Which team can show up that day? But I think it would be a fun atmosphere. Like I said, culturally, I think the fan bases would kind of have a lot in common and a lot to talk about. So I don't have a lot other than that. I just think that would be if Maryland went back to their old, the ugly uniforms they had like a couple years ago, and Kentucky did like the full checkerboard, like,
man,
it would be so difficult to watch on.
Be like an impressionist painting.
That's
the Maryland flag ones.
Yeah, the flag. So like the full Maryland flag, and then like the blue checkered, like everything.
Yes,
for
like some Jackson Pollock pointillism or something. Yeah.
That would be a nightmare to view, but also fantastic.
Yeah.
I love that reasoning. I had Nebraska A&M, Nebraska versus Texas A&M.
Okay.
So it is an old Big Ten rivalry matchup. Well, not a rivalry matchup, but an old Big Ten matchup, right? I do think A&M destroys Nebraska at this point. But it could be, Nebraska wants to punch up with the big boys again. So give them a big boy again, right? But in the end, it's an agricultural school against corn.
Yeah.
It's a natural matchup right there. That's literally the reason why I put them together. I was like, oh, Big 12 schools, corn, agriculture school. There you go. Right there.
Well,
but big stadiums, big fan bases, great game.
Well, Nebraska has something because Texas A&M stole their AD. So, maybe there's
that's
something
right.
to play for,
The Trev Alberts Bowl.
Yeah, there you go.
All right.
If Nebraska were to play A&M and win, Nebraska fans actually could say they were back.
Yeah.
True. Yeah.
At least until they hit conference play.
Oh.
I know. I didn't even think. All right. Next up, I had Ole Miss and Michigan.
Okay.
Look, it's Lane Kiffin. They're going to score a bunch of points.
Mm-hmm.
I think dual threat Bryce Underwood for Michigan will open up the running game as he's a threat to run the ball himself. And, Michigan always has great backs. So I think this leads Michigan to be able to grind the clock out, win time of possession. I like Lane, but last year was his most talented team, and he still went 9-3.
Mm-hmm.
I think Michigan pulls out a close one. Michigan 31, Ole Miss 28.
Okay. I have Purdue or Rutgers versus Arkansas. The reason I picked this, Purdue and Arkansas, just two terrible teams.
Mm-hmm.
I just think that it just kind of makes sense as far as where they are as programs right now for them to play each other. And I picked Rutgers because I think Rutgers would win. And I'm a bit of a Rutgers fan, having lived in New Jersey for a number of years and going to a lot of Scarlet Knights games. And they were fun. They were a lot of fun. So I just want to see Rutgers beat up on an SEC team. So that's what I'd like to see here. So
nice.
Yeah.
That's a very good selection. I have Auburn, Penn State, mostly because of those preseason talks of Auburn being something again. Mm-hmm. So if Auburn is something again, right, even if they are something, they're still below Georgia. They're still below Tennessee. They're still below Alabama. Mm. Even if Penn State is who Penn State is, still think they're going to be less than Ohio State. I still think they're going to be less than Oregon. I still think they might be less than Michigan. So it's kind of that battle of around the we think we're big. We're not quite as big as the top end of our conference. Mm-hmm. So that's sort of a 4-off, like the best of the fours. And I just think that it would be a solid matchup between the two. It is really weird in looking into it. It's been 6 years since Auburn has finished a season ranked, which feels like way too long for Auburn. It's a solid program. And they have not only not been ranked, they've been 500 or worse for about 6 years at this point.
Yep.
And I just think if they think they're back the way that media is talking about them being back, I think Penn State's the right matchup for them.
Sure.
Big schools, big expectations. I still think Penn State puts Auburn in their place.
Okay.
Next up, I had LSU, Minnesota, but I think we already talked about that one. So I'll just say that I think it comes down to the fact that Garrett Nussmeier is experienced senior, seen it all at quarterback, whereas Drake Lindsey's an inexperienced redshirt freshman. I think he throws a late pick or two. Nussmeier leads a game-winning TD drive, LSU 27, Minnesota 24.
Okay. I don't have anything else. I think I've hit all of
you hit them all?
My teams, yeah.
All right, what about you, Chris?
I think the only thing I have left is Mississippi State, Michigan State, which I only put together because it's the battle of the little brothers. It's the opposite of Ole Miss and Michigan. It's the state schools in those two respective states. Either team could be good on a given season. They could be mid on a given season. I think they match up pretty well together.
Okay.
Nice.
Cool.
Did we talk? All right, let's see mine remaining. Maybe we talked about some of these already. Did I mention Alabama, Oregon yet? Did we talk that?
I don't think so. Nope.
No, and that's a good matchup.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's epic. Kalen DeBoer needs to win now while Dan Lanning's on a hot streak. That said, Dan Lanning has the more dynamic QB. I think that counteracts Alabama's advantage with their star wide receiver. It's close, but I think Oregon would win a high-scoring game, 42-38, and Kalen DeBoer. Oh, man, if Alabama failed to hire Dan Lanning and then lost to Dan Lanning,
Ooh,
that'd be a bad look for Kalen DeBoer. So I think that'd be interesting. All right, next up, I'll just go rapid fire here. I had Tennessee, Indiana. So I got Heupel, Signetti. 2 high-flying offenses trading points. I think it's epic. I might sound crazy here, but I think Signetti finds a way to win this one somehow, some way, and Tennessee fans immediately go on suicide watch because that would be – we already talked Georgia, Ohio State, and then my last one is Texas, Penn State.
Oh.
These are 2 teams that are all in on winning a national title this year. They both have the blue chip QBs. They both return a bunch of production from playoff semifinal teams. Both played for conference titles last year. Both coaches are amazing, and James Franklin and Steve Sarkisian being really, really successful, but haven't ever won the big one. Either one of them, really.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I think that would be a really interesting game in which both teams kind of are in national title or bust mode.
Okay, cool. All right. Well, should we move on to the next segment then?
Oh, and I think Penn State wins barely.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, let's move on to our last segment of the day.
Yeah. Well, next what we're doing is we all picked a coach that from both the Big Ten or the SEC, and what your school, like what coach you would want to be the next head coach at your school and why. So
yeah, so let's say tomorrow Eli Drinkowitz says I'm done at Mizzou.
Yeah,
I'm done, or PJ Fleck says I'm done at Minnesota.
Yeah,
that's it. It's been real. I'm moving on. What are we doing next?
Mm-hmm. So who wants to start?
Chris, you're the guest.
Yeah, I can start here. So you guys obviously know I love PJ. PJ brings enthusiasm. He brings culture. His guys will run through a wall, right?
It's true.
They punch above their weight, which would be good at Missouri, right? He seems to have more hits than losses in the transfer portal. But Missouri already drops the big game too many times. So sorry, PJ. As much as I love you, you don't go for the jugular and you don't win the big one. And I know this is borderline cheating, but it's Ryan Day. It's Ryan Day. He just won a natty. He's only lost a total of 10 games ever as a head coach. He's only 46. He could run the Tigers for the next 15 years easy. He recruits. He's a good offensive mind, which is how Missouri thrives, is with an offensive-minded head coach with a good D coordinator. He can do that as long as they don't leave to Penn State, right? His biggest negative is that he doesn't ever beat his biggest rival in Michigan. Well, currently our biggest rival is Arkansas, and we absolutely own them, and nobody cares nationally, so there's not the heat on it. So he's not going to psych himself out and do something stupid like he did in the Michigan game last year. So he doesn't even lose his big rivalry game anymore because it's not a big rival. So he's wide open to just no longer lose. Undefeated Ryan Day at Missouri, sweeping through the SEC, winning Missouri national championships. Plus, he and his wife work with mental health charities to help people with mental health issues and bring light to mental health issues. Pretty cool. That's a good thing to have on your resume right there. I'll take that from my head coach any day of the week. And again, not having a true rival in the SEC means this guy is golden.
Yeah.
Yeah,
all
there
right.
you go.
That's a
all
good
right.
one. Okay.
I love it. All right, John, go ahead.
All right. Well, for my Minnesota Golden Gophers, if PJ Fleck decides to finally take another job, as all of our rivals have constantly told us, and are once again telling us that it's going to happen. And
oh my God, he's been here like a decade. Let's get over it.
So
he's not a fly by night. Even if he leaves now, he's been here for a long time.
Yeah.
Like, let's be real.
Yeah. So anyway, Well, I think realistically, there is a possibility of this happening, and I would actually like to see Eli Drinkowitz at the University of Minnesota.
Yeah.
Drinkowitz has built a reputation for creative offensive schemes. He's known for his innovative approach as an offensive coordinator at Appalachian State and later as head coach at Missouri. His ability to design up-tempo, diverse offenses could invigorate Minnesota's program, which is often leaned on a more traditional ground-and-pound style. His recruiting, Drinkowitz has done well in recruiting in the SEC and surrounding areas, given Minnesota's location in the Big Ten and its need to compete with schools like Michigan, Wisconsin, Ohio State. A coach like Drinkowitz, who's experienced recruiting in tough regions, could help bring in top-tier talent to Minneapolis. Adaptability. Drinkowitz has demonstrated flexibility in adapting his coaching style to the strengths of his roster, which is focusing on a strong quarterback, or whether it's focusing on a strong quarterback, a solid running game, or building a balanced attack. He's shown he can tailor his approach based on his personnel. Player development. Drinkowitz has been known for his focus on developing players, which is crucial for Minnesota. Where they might not always land the highest ranked recruits, his ability to develop talent could also allow Minnesota to continue to punch above its weight and build a competitive team, even when facing schools with more resources. And a fresh energy. Minnesota's had stability with PJ Fleck, but sometimes like a new voice, can reinvigorate. I think he's still young. He's got a progressive mindset, just like PJ. But I think there's a different vibe, obviously, with Eli Drinkowitz, rather, obviously according to PJ. And I think his personality might be more, what's the word I'm looking for? Palatable by the Twin Cities media.
Sure.
They may not hate him right away like they did with PJ, or all the time like they do with PJ. So there might be some Twin Cities media personalities might actually, give him a shot and, before they run him out of town or want to run him out of town.
It's the glasses.
Yeah. Okay.
PJ's too pretty. Drink is a little dorky looking. So they're not going to pick him.
Less challenging. Not threatening their masculinity the same way. Sure.
Yeah.
Exactly.
It's interesting. No, I think that it's just evidence that John will pander to the guest.
Yeah.
I think that's what we're seeing here. That John is ready and willing to pander. When the time
I think it just means that Drink is a better coach than Ryan Day. That's what John just said.
Nice. All right. So what coach would I put at Minnesota if PJ were to leave? And I hope PJ stays for a much longer time, and he's already been here a long time. So that said, if he was gone, I would think immediately about Curt Cignetti. Look at what he's done. He's been conference coach of the year in every conference he's been in. He's never had a losing season. His talent evaluation is second to none. The man just wins. But then I thought about how is it going to go over with the Twin Cities media when Cignetti says stuff like, I win, Google me. I'm thinking it goes over like a lead balloon. I think the media would tear him apart. I think they would hate him and declare war on him from day one.
Yep.
I think it would be not a great fit. So then I thought about Kirby Smart, the SEC. I thought, man, that's a guy who can build up a program to the top. He can win. He can, he's willing to, do whatever it takes and all that kind of stuff. And then I thought, how's it going to go in the Twin Cities media when they're out getting speeding tickets every single week? Players are doing dangerous drag racing and people are getting hurt or killed.
Mm-hmm.
I'm thinking that also wouldn't go over great with the Twin Cities media.
Yeah.
So then I thought about Lane Kiffin. He's one of us. He's from here. He was born and raised in Minnesota. He understands the ways of our people. And he used to say a lot of really obnoxious things. He's kind of mellowed as he's approached his more middle age. And he's gotten to a point where he isn't so offensive. He's a little dryly sarcastic. And once again, I just don't think that's going to go over very well. I think it takes a very particular kind of personality to really work. PJ has kind of worked because he's the relentless optimism guy, right? Like, it's hard to hate on PJ. People have tried, but it's hard to consistently hate on PJ when he's always like having his guys do stuff in the community and like helping cancer kids and like winning football games. And it makes it hard to hate on him. And I think you need someone who has that kind of Teflon. You need someone at this job who is kind of bulletproof where they're at right now, who can come in, say, we're going to do things my way, and immediately get respect. And I think that man is Dan Lanning. Because if there's the one thing, PJ has been great, and he's raised our recruiting profile, but Dan Lanning is an assassin, and his whole staff is filled with crazy recruiters. And more importantly, he knows where the bodies are buried with Phil Knight and could probably get us some Nike money.
Yeah.
He's probably earned it with them. Probably talked them into it. And we are a Nike school as it is. And I just think with all the Fortune 500 companies in the Twin Cities, I think if anybody can get them to open their coffers and give some money, it'd be Dan Lanning. So that's where I would go. I think he would. I thought about Ryan Day, but I went with Dan Lanning because I think he could recruit better and raise more money at a place like Minnesota.
Yeah. I agree with you on that. Okay.
Awesome. Well, John, remember this was going to be a 45-minute podcast this week?
Yeah, always. Yeah. I had a feeling that it might go longer because especially with the three of us here, like all having this discussion. But I mean, we were nervous about that. Obviously, the off season's tough, but this is a fun exercise. This was great. This was awesome.
Yeah.
And
thanks Chris. Thanks to our guest, Chris.
Yeah, thank you guys for having me. I had a ball.
Really appreciate you coming on short notice like that. And it was great. Is there? Did you decide? Is there anything else you need to plug?
Nah, no plugs, man.
All right. No plugs. Just for the love of the game. I love that.
Yep.
I love you coming on just for the love and not for anything else. All right, John, anything you want to say before we get out of here?
As always, if you want to find We Live for Saturday, you can find us on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Podcast Addict. You can find us on Twitter at We Live for B1G Sat. You can find Mike at Alibaba26. You can find me, John, at Norwegian Gopher. And you can email us, We Live for Saturday, B1G@gmail.com. And Chris, Instagram.
Yes, that's right. Penguin Blue, right? Penguin Blue? Blue Penguin?
Let me double check. Did I change my name? I changed my name. It's STL Blues FC.
One more time?
STL Blues FC.
All right.
STL Blues FC on Instagram. So that's the first time we've ever plugged somebody's Instagram on this show.
Yeah.
So
there everybody go follow it. Follow us, please.
Yes.
Retweet, like, subscribe, all that good stuff. We really appreciate that. It helps us out a lot. So we're trying.
And if you have extra email addresses, just subscribe on them. You don't have to watch on them. Just subscribe. It helps us out a lot. We appreciate it. I'm subscribed to our channel on like 3 email addresses. So that's the way it is. All right. Well, thank you for everything, everybody. If you're still with us this far into a podcast, nearly 2 hours in, you're a real one. And we will see you on the next one. Have an awesome week.